Well, welcome to another RDWorks Learning Lab. Today we've got a busy screen on the go, and that's because I'm going to make some tools to aid me with the next session. And the next session will be all about me changing my mirrors back to copper mirrors maybe, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But we need some tools in the meantime to help us with that task. Now, I have got various bits and pieces of kit around, but some tools that I developed for the other machine, which is the Think Laser machine, I needed to adapt them to suit my original Chinese machine. And so what I've got here is a set of parts that will make, in this corner here, target holders. And then we've got some paper targets here, some card targets, and we've got some acrylic targets, which will prove to be very useful for us. And then in addition, we've got this interesting little lump of acrylic here, which is basically as a little tool for helping me to remove the mirror screws. Where do we start? I've imported all this lot as one great big DXF file. Even though there's different materials, I can't program them all together, but keeping as a group is a very convenient way of passing the information on to you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to program each one up and just very quickly show you how I go about it, because it's a long time since I've done any programming on screen. I normally just skip over that and say, well, let's get to the assembly bits and pieces. You don't need to see this. There are some newcomers that have probably come along that jump in later on in the program and maybe missed some of the basic stuff. So let me just quickly go through, because it doesn't take very long to program these, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is to take away all of these. So we delete those, and then we'll delete that, and at the same time as we're deleting that, I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to remove the frame from this one. So that's a second delete. Then I can move things back into the center of the screen just because it's convenient to work with. We're going to start off with the target shapes, and I'm going to collect all of the target shapes in a marquee. And now I'm going to hold down the shift key and I collect all of these in a marquee, and all of these as well. So now all of these target marks are collected together in one drawing, should I say. I'm now going to put that drawing into a group by clicking the group control. Now you can see they've disappeared back to black again. And now what I want to do is I want to do all the outside shapes. And the quick way to do that is to collect the whole lot, hold down the shift key and subtract the group that we've just produced. And there we go. Look, we've got the outside shapes done now. So I can put those into a group as well. So we've got two groups on there. One of them is a cut group and the other one is a scorch group. So we can't cut and scorch with the same parameters. So what I'm going to do now is select the scorch group and put that onto a different layer. So that was easy to do because I'd already grouped them. So we've now created a scorch group which we will program, and to scorch it we really want to go as fast as we probably can, which is maybe 300 millimeters a second. We're going to cut, yes. What power? Let's guess at 12%, which will scorch at 300 millimeters a second but not cut through. In fact, I could try slight variation here. I might try 9 and 12, but going back a long way, there was a whole program on using max and min in cutting routines, and generally you don't use max and min, you use the same powers, but there are some advantages to using two powers. That's all we need to do. Okay, now we're going to do the black cut command, and we need to do that at probably something like 80 might be right actually, and then we'll put the power in at maybe 15%, and that should work. Okay, right, so we've basically programmed that, with the exception that we want to make sure that we do the scorching before we do the cutting. Now the cutting, as you notice, if you look very carefully, you'll see at the top of each one of these elements there's a tag, what I call a tag. Basically it stops the thing from falling out. This is a sheet of paper. We'll turn them into bus tickets basically and tear them out as we need them. So we need to order this, and the quickest and easiest way that I order them is down at the bottom here. I've got no path optimization and no output selected graphics. They're both unticked. And then up here in the handle command, and when I select the cut optimize window, you'll see that I've got nothing ticked or selected. And that's the way I like it, because I want control. And the way that I get control is to come up here to this little edit cut property box, and all of a sudden I get this wonderful little box here which has got two elements in it. The two elements are the two groups that I selected, and what I'd like to do, I'd like to select the blue element to start with, and so we're going to move it from its current list to a new list, and then we're going to put the outside shape from that list to this new list. Done. And that's it. The program's done. Now I'm working on a remote computer here, and I can't just do download and push the program to the machine. So I have to stop at this point and do a save to you file. Okay, so we've now saved that, and now I'm going to do the other target. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go backwards in time with my Control Z key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just so that I don't lose track of everything, I'll go back one more, 7. And this time we'll carry out the same procedure. We'll delete that. I'll hold down my Shift key, and we will delete that, and I'll hold down my Shift key again and we delete that in one go. And now we do the other target. Nice simple task, if you remember. Collect that target there, hold down the Shift key, collect those targets there, hold down the Shift key, and with the Shift key down, I'm going to go up here. I've let go of the Shift key now. We'll make them a group. It hasn't happened. Group. Now it has. Now we do the same thing again around the outside here. We'll collect together as a group, hold down the Shift key and subtract the first group, and now we'll put that second group into a group. Now we'll come back to the first group because we want to scorch it, and we'll put it onto a blue layer. And with a bit of luck, the settings for the blue layer are already there, which they are. The black layer is already programmed, and there it is. So we no need to touch that. All we need to do is come up here and take a look at our, there's a chance like this, look, this is already element 1, and so this is element 2. I don't need to do anything, so I can just say OK, and I know that that's going to work. So I could just save that to a U file. Save. Okay, Control Z. So now we can delete these. We should delete these, and we'll delete the text because we don't want the text. Delete. And we move this lot into play. So we don't have to keep re-importing this every time. That's the point I'm trying to make here. We can just backstep, provided we've got a reasonable number of steps. You know, if it went into 30 and 40 steps, you wouldn't be able to do this. Now we've got some stuff on here that we could possibly just cut these lightly and mark them rather than cut through. We could cut through because they're not going to fall out. It doesn't really matter. I think this is a small enough group to cut all the holes in one go. Quite often in the complex group like this, it's touch and go whether in fact what we might do, for example, is cut a small group down the bottom here first, cut the holes and then cut the outside so that they drop away, and then we'll cut some of these others. But you know, to be honest, the chances of something moving, which is the risk that you take when you cut holes out before you cut outside shapes, if you cut holes and immediately cut the outside shape, the chances of anything moving is pretty close to nil. Where you're cutting these items over here, there's a chance that you could disturb the pattern, and when you get over here there'll be misregistration. I think in this particular instance, the way that I'm going to do it, which is on the honeycomb bed, the chances of that happening are pretty close to nil. So we'll just go ahead and we'll program all the holes to start with. If I start on the pattern, I won't collect that part. Collect the holes, collect the holes. I can go down a little bit further and collect holes there. Now hopefully I've just collected holes and not collected any outside shapes so far. I'll keep my shift key down, we'll collect that one, we'll collect those two holes there, we'll collect these holes here, then we'll collect this pattern of holes here. Do this pattern of holes here, the number 2, collect these few holes here and these holes here. In fact, we should be able to collect all of these holes just here, just like that. Okay, we'll check around to make sure we've collected all the numbers and all the holes. We've got no black holes or black numbers left, which we haven't, and we can put those into a group. We can collect all of that lot, hold down the shift key and subtract the first group, and now we've programmed all the outside shapes, and we'll put those into a group. We're not going to use different commands, we're only going to be using cutting on here, so the numbers will cut through, but of course they won't fall out, but it doesn't matter. This is only for marking, just so you know which bits belong to which part. So we check again. 80mm a second is far too fast for 2mm acrylic on this machine, which I'm going to use, which will be the Think Laser machine. I'm going to be cutting that. I might 2mm material. I might get away with 20mm a second, and we've only got 2 elements in here. And element 1 is the holes, so we haven't got to do anything. So the existing cut list is perfect. So I just need to save that to a U file. Now we'll backtrack again, Control Z, and we delete that, hold down the shift key, and then we'll shift this into the middle. Again, we're cutting, this is 5mm material, so let's, before we do any more, let's just set the parameters for 5mm material, which will be about 8mm a second with a power of 67% flat out. So how do we start programming this? Well, this is easy, because all we've got to do is to collect all the holes up without touching the outside shapes completely, put them into a group, and then we'll collect all of that lot up. With the shift key we'll subtract the first group, and we'll put the outside shapes into a group. Let's just check what we've got now. The outside shape is already element number 1, so we don't need to do anything again. This is dead easy, isn't it? Okay, save to U file, and then Control Z, Control Z. Oh, by the way, if you find that you're not getting text coming in with your DXF files, that's because up here on, I believe it's the config file parameters, what we've got is DXF units here. Look, import DXF text information. So you need that box ticked if you want the text to come in. Well, here we've got some targets which do need to be effectively scorched in, but this is acrylic, so we shall basically be lightly cutting these targets in. Select all of them, and then with the shift key down, remove the group. And then we can group those that are left, and that leaves us with 2 groups. But we want to put this group here of targets onto a different regime, so we'll set the parameters for that differently. Now we've got these scorch parameters set here, which, to be honest, I think I will leave. This is 8mm material, so this is definitely not going to be the standard cut. This may only be 3mm a second, and we'll just check the cut order, and we shall see that we've got 2 groups in there again. Don't need to change anything because the elements are exactly where we want them. Okay. And you will notice that the elements are where we want them because we programmed the blue layer before we programmed the outside. And even though the blue layer is actually the second layer in this list up here, the list is being ignored because we haven't asked for it to be cut in layer order. So it's cutting in the order that I want them cut in. If you've got your machine connected to a PC directly via the USB cable or the Ethernet, you would never see these RD files that I'm creating with a save to file, because what happens is you press the download button, so it's a machine code file that gets sent to the filing system in the machine. I'm having to save that machine code file to a USB stick and then feed that back into the machine. Now we could go and cut all the parts, but that really is the boring part. I was cutting those at about 20mm a second. As you can see, it's done a reasonable job actually. Well, we're going to start off with the easy one, which is number 1. What we're going to do is we're going to put the double on the left hand side. So we're going to put these 2 together like this with the hexagons towards the center, like that. So they go in there first, and then the plain one goes on the other side. So the 1 goes at the top here with this one, but what we're going to do, we're going to put it so that the notch faces downwards, and then there's only one way to put that on, because there's a double notch on one side and a single notch on the other. And that goes on there like that. And then the bottom is obvious which way that goes on as well. So that's the basic assembly. Now, as always, I'm going to be using my kitchen roll underneath here because I don't want it to spill everywhere. And then we'll just very gently run along here with a bead of glue. Then we do the same on the other side. I think we could probably run along the bottom there as well. So that's the first assembly made. Now the number 2 that's on the face there will have to go face down. This number 2 sits on that side there like that. And the other number 2, which has got 2 tangs which are close together, will sit on the other side like that. But between them we've got a squaring spacer. So that can sit in there like that, and that will hold the whole thing together nice and rigid and square. And then this piece here is the bottom, and we've got these 3 pieces here. 2 of them are the same and 1 of them is different, and it's the different one that goes on the bottom. This might be a bit tricky because they don't, you have to be very careful. We can just about plug that together, look. The tongue's facing the opposite direction, which is never a good thing when you're trying to do a plug and play type assembly like this. But it was necessary to get the corner joint right. And then these number 2s, it doesn't matter which way they go round, but they both go on the top. There we go, we've got another little box assembly. It's a matter of finding out how I'm going to hold it to keep it all together. And then finally all the unmarked pieces must be for the last part. Well, that's how those two pieces go together, and you'll know that because across the top here you've got thick holes and across the bottom you've got small narrow slots, and the narrow slots across the bottom take this piece. Now the one with the 2 small slots in it goes in first, and the one with the 2 long slots on it goes in, well, it goes on top basically. Now that's the basic assembly, and I think it might be a good idea to get that glued up first. So I think we'll put that down flat because that's the flat side. And then these 2 little pieces here, they sit in the top there like that and hang out the front. We definitely need to glue those in. And that's our little number 1 mirror. So they're not numbered up for the mirrors in any particular order, it's just that number 2 happens to be mirror number 2. So that's mirror number 1, that's mirror number 2, and that's mirror number 3. So here we've got our targets, peel them off like bus tickets. That fits onto target number 1 like that, and that one fits onto target number 2. It's the same target. This is the funny shaped one that goes onto target holder number 3. I mean, that scribed line there is the centre of the mirror as the laser beam sees it. It doesn't come through the centre of the hole, it goes about 3 or 4 millimetres above centre. And if I turn that target over, this piece at the top here represents the port entry, and this piece across the bottom represents the edge of the mirror that the laser beam can see. Well, I think the assembly of these pieces is going to be pretty self-evident. This is the mirror removal tool. Up to now I've been fiddling around with a piece of nylon that I happened to just punch some holes in and put some studs in it. But you know, that was a quick bodge, and I've always promised that I would make something a little bit better that you guys could copy, that you didn't need a mill or a bench press or something like that. So if you've got a laser and you've got access to some screws and some nuts, you've got everything that you need. It's a very simple assembly. We've got 2 pieces here which literally just fit together as a cross. We can then pop the piece with the plain holes in it onto it, the piece with the hexagon holes next, but make sure they line up with the holes there. The next thing you should do is poke your screw through the hole and put your nut on it, and very carefully set the nut back into the hexagon hole and screw it up. Then the final part is to put this small piece right on the end. You might need to glue it on. It depends what sort of fit that you've managed to make your parts. These are 16mm long M3 screws that I've got here, and that means they project out the end of 3 pieces of 5mm by about 1 millimetre. That's enough of a projection to sit in the drive holes. But all these tools will be available. I shall get these uploaded to the RDWorks Lab forum, where you can pick them up if you need them, or you can do as you normally do, which is write to me, personally message me with your email, and I will supply you with the drawings. There's a whole set of drawings there which will include these three plus the targets. So there's a whole kit of parts there that will come on one DXF drawing. Well, thanks for your time, and I will catch up with you next session.